Welcome back to the channel again. This is Tristan with Lawson's Car Reviews, and today I've got the 2019 Honda Accord Sport. It's a 1.5 liter turbo, and it has 192 horsepower, 192 foot-pounds of torque. So let's go ahead and take a look. I really want to compare it to the Toyota Camry, which I drove a little earlier, just to compare them and see how they both do against each other. What's good, YouTube? This hood is really light. Giddy up! So starting off at the front of the Honda Accord, love the styling of this too. It's very similar to the Camry at the front, I feel, because it also has a little bit of gloss black on the grille, but you do get the daytime running lights, our LED. Also got some fog lights down there, but very aggressive look. And I like the lines that you get on the hood that go on either side. Kind of gives this car a much more sporty look. And the profile of this car and the profile of the Camry that I drove before it, that in the review that you may or may not have watched, they're not similar, but I like them just as much as I like each other because of the body lines. The Camry had a line that went down, and this one has a nice line that goes all the way down too. Really like the look of that. These are also same size wheels as what the Camry had, so I like the styling of the Camry wheel more. But this is also a nice wheel with some gloss black and some silver, and it's the same size as what the Camry had, which is a 235 on the width, 40mm on the sidewall, and then a 19-inch wheel. So it has the same size wheels all the way around, and I really like this blue color. I think that it's super sharp. I will say that the Toyota Camry had much nicer exhaust setup. It came with quad tips, whereas this kind of comes with the fake exhaust outlet, which a lot of new manufacturers are going to this. Kind of just plastic, and then you got a little exhaust back there. Whereas the Camry actually had a very nice quad tip looking exhaust. The same usual standard Honda key fob. So you press and hold, and it kind of releases the trunk. The one thing that this car does have over the Camry is a much bigger trunk space. So I believe that this is 16.7 cubic feet of trunk space. You've got this nice trunk liner in it, very nice quality. The Camry's trunk was between 14 and 15 cubic feet, so this car has a much bigger trunk. The leg room, I would say, if I go ahead and open these doors, the legroom in this car seems like it is more than what the legroom was in the Camry. When I had the Camry seat all the way back, I had a lot less legroom back here. But what I will say is, the Camry was $5,000 more the way it was spec'd, and it had the nice red leather seats, whereas this kind of has cloth and leather. But it's definitely not as high quality of an interior, and you also do not have vents in the back for your passengers, whereas in the Toyota Camry you had the additional vents, as well as you had the moonroof in the Camry. But the interior of this car overall is quite nice. It's not as plush. The materials, there's a lot more hard plastic on the door pockets, and the front windows are auto up, auto down, but the rear windows are not, whereas on the Camry the front and the back both had auto up, auto down. And then you get this faux carbon fiber, which feels cheap, but it also felt cheap on the Toyota Camry. So these cars are very comparable. You do get USB here, 12 volt, which should be standard nowadays. This particular model does not get wireless charging, and you do have sport mode, eco, and an electronic parking brake. which you also had in the Camry, and the storage space is a little bit more shallow than on the other car, and you get another 12 volt back here, so you do get more USB and more connectivity on the Camry than what you get on this particular Accord. Let me go ahead and pop the trunk. Let's take a look under that hood and see what's powering this thing. And the Toyota Camry had hood struts, whereas this car has a prop rod, and that was a 2.5 liter 4-cylinder engine, whereas this is a 1.5 liter 4-cylinder engine. So both cars have a really nice looking engine bay. As I said, I'm going to put the specs for this car as far as gas mileage and everything on the screen right here, and also give you the horsepower and torque numbers, all of that good stuff. There's no point really giving you the 0 to 60 because this is not a race car by any means. It's just a 4-cylinder and it's not that fast. But they did a good job with not having a bunch of plastic and engine covers in the engine bay. And I will say this car, as I said, is $5,000 cheaper. So I believe if you got one that cost the same price, $29,000 is what the Camry did, and this only has 18,000 miles on it. If you got the same, if you spent the same amount of money, I believe you could get a very similar spec Honda Accord for that same price. Okay, so before we drive, look, this has an awesome aluminium dead pedal and brake and gas pedal, which the Toyota did not have. It is push button start, so you just hold the brake and then push the button right here. And it has very nice gauges. You do have basically an analog gauge, and then you also have a digital gauge. And I will say that the stereo system in this thing is good looking. I think that the radio in this actually looks a little bit better than it did in the Camry, but they are very comparable. So as I said, I don't really think you can go too wrong in any of these cars. And I need to drive the Accord that has all of the leather seats like this one did. I mean, like the one I drove did. I need to drive the equivalent Accord just to make sure that it's a fair comparison, because the seats in the Camry, without a shadow of a doubt, were way more comfortable than the seats in this car. This car, it is comfortable, don't get me wrong, it is not an uncomfortable car, but I feel like the legroom in the Camry was more than it was in this car. And I also think that the seats were very plush. So it was red leather, the seats looked really good, they felt really good, and they had plenty of leg room for a guy of my size, which I am 6'4". So I'm tall, and I feel like the car would be comfortable for a guy up to 6'7", 6'8". Also, another difference on this car is the passenger seat is not electric. That is full manual to slide the seat back and to tilt the seat, whereas the other car that I just drove did have a full electric passenger seat as well as electric driver seat. So as I said, the car was much more highly spec'd. So I don't want to necessarily compare them on the quality, because that wouldn't be a fair comparison. But as far as how the cars drive, they drive very similar. The Camry definitely had a bigger glove compartment, and it's a smoother riding car. This car, I think, feels like it has better suspension, especially for hidden corners. But because the suspension is tighter when it comes to hitting corners, it makes the ride not as pleasant as what it was on the Camry. So I feel like if you drove the new Camry TRD, which is their sport version, the suspension on that apparently has been stiffened up, and that probably drives similar to what this does as far as stiffness. Let me put my foot down real quick. So similar to the Camry, the torque numbers and the horsepower numbers are honestly very close. So this car also is not that quick. As I said, I always like to drive the 4 cylinders first, so that when I do come to driving the 6 cylinders, it's a fair comparison. I'm gonna, you know, compare the 4 cylinder on its own merits, because at the end of the day, these cars are supposed to be economical. They're not supposed to be super fast sports cars. Another cool feature you'll see on the dash, you'll see that there is a green light on either side of the dash. That's to show that I am in eco mode. If I press the sport mode, it changes red. So green is eco, red I guess means race. So let me pull over and turn back around, and then let me go ahead and see what the Toyota Camry in sport mode can really do. By the way, you get these pedal shifters and they feel like a decent quality, but they are very small. See, tiny. They're mounted to the steering wheel, not the steering column. And to be honest with you, they're kind of a waste of time, because I feel like when you shift using them, the car does not really shift very quickly. The steering is also very light, and I feel like when you change from eco mode in this car and then you change to sport mode, to me it does change the rev range and it does change how the car drives and its shift points, but overall it doesn't really feel like it's super sporty or anything like that. So as I said, it is the 1.5 liter 4-cylinder engine, so I'm not really expecting it to feel like it's really quick, but it would be nice if when you changed from eco to sport, it would be nice if it gave you a heavier steering feel. I feel like that would be a nice touch. I would say the same thing for the Toyota Camry as well. It was the same thing. The steering was a little bit too light, and I feel like they needed to make it a bit more weighted when you go through eco, normal, and sport mode. So I'm giving both cars a ding for that reason. Okay, I'm at a light. Let's do the 0 to 60. 1, 2, 3, go. Okay, that was 60. So obviously it's not lightning quick. I can't wait to test drive the 4-cylinder turbo model, because I believe that has 297 horsepower. So I think that will be a much quicker car than this. Well, I don't think, I know it will be. And test driving the V6 model of the Camry will also be good to compare those two. But this car, it's still slow, just like the Camry was slow. But I feel in my buttocks, I feel in my butt dyno that this car is actually quicker 0 to 60 than what the Toyota Camry was. Now that could just be in my mind. That could just be in my mind, but I literally just drove the Camry and this back to back. So it's still fresh in my mind how the car feels. Another thing I'll say is, I feel like when you put your foot flat to the floor in this car, it feels like there's a lot less torque steer than there is in the Toyota Camry. The torque steer in the Camry wasn't bad, but I feel like you could definitely feel it. Car does have a very nice backup camera too, by the way. Okay, let me go one more time. This is flat foot, flat to the floor. Okay. It's as I said, it's not a fast car, but for an economical family vehicle, you could easily fit yourself, your wife, your girlfriend, and 2 kids in the back, because the trunk space is decent. So for that kind of vehicle, if you're not looking for something to be super quick or to excite you when you put your foot down, then I actually think that this car is a great option. For a hair under $25,000, and I'm sure that you could talk that number down, I think this is a really good car. As I said, the way the car handles, the way it feels, I mean, I'm just going left to right. The steering input is much better than the Camry. So even though the steering is too light, or lighter than I would like it, it's really responsive. Whereas the Camry, when you turn the wheel, there's a little bit of dead movement before the car starts to turn one way or another. So that is something that Honda has in its favor. And from what other people say when they're reviewing cars, Honda seems to do a really good job of getting the steering feel on a car to feel good. This car is no exception to that. It definitely feels good. The steering wheel in this car it's nice, and the one in the Camry was nice. So if I'm comparing them to each other, this car has equally as good a steering wheel as the Camry did. Both car steering wheels have a nice thickness to them. The leather on them feels nice, and it feels like quite good quality, just to be honest with you. It's not it doesn't feel bad or cheap at all. So even though these cars are not expensive cars, Toyota and Honda do a great job of making their cars feel like good quality cars. I am getting ready to get on the highway, so let's get this car to speed and see how it feels when you're going quick. Okay, getting on the highway right now in the 2019 Toyota Camry Sport. Let's go. Foot flat to the floor. That's 60. So its power to merge is definitely not the best. And its passing power, now that I'm in at higher speeds, let's do a quick test. So I am behind this truck. There's no one behind me, so this is a safe test. And I'm getting off at the next exit, and I want to pass this truck. So let me signal, move out, let's see how long it takes to pass. And this old Toyota Camry is now in my way, blocking me. Just like the new Toyota Camry's blocking this Honda Accord, because it is a little bit nicer. Oh gosh. Anyway guys, that's the end of the review. I'm gonna put my Lawson score up on the screen for this car. Thanks for watching the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe and let me know if there's any other cars that you'd like me to review. And I will see you in the next video.